There we go. Polar bear plays the Kann. The Caro-Kann, I mean. Yeah, there are different ways to play, and I mostly play the advanced variation, but I have tried the Paddock-Botvinnik attack too. And you can also, push this pawn. But I'm just going to do the short variation here and just get castled. Yeah, I never felt it comfortable doing this wacky pawn push, but it's a common idea against the Caro-Kann. Okay, he's targeting this pawn, this one. I think I can play c4. It hasn't developed very much. I don't know, maybe I could play something like b3 and bishop to b2 to defend the center. And then knight to c3. Yeah, I thought he would be going there sooner or later. There we go, got all our pieces off the back rank. Always a good way to start the game. So he's castled, and he's protected this square, so I can't do the knight maneuver to harass the bishop. Let's take here and see which way he wants to take back. And then go here. Yeah, I guess, he could have considered retreating. So it's just one open file here. Have to stay in control there. Okay, he's hitting this pawn. Let's protect it. I guess he can still take it. He's got a dark squared bishop. There he goes. Okay, can I pin that piece? I think I can. Yeah, I guess he couldn't take that pawn after all. was about to say it might be a pretty even game. Our pawn structure was symmetrical. There was one open file where we'd already both placed our rooks. Well, of course, I can just take that. So he gave up a rook rather than giving up his bishop. He resigned. Okay, well, let's see. Maybe we can get a rapid game here. It's interesting. I've been winning a lot of Blitz games and losing my rapid games. Let's try a Sicilian. Ever Alvo Rosk. So 1998 here. Let's go with the Kann Sicilian. I played my other classical Sicilian many times recently. But the Kann Sicilian is kind of interesting with this, set up this pawn structure here. And then you bring out the queen. So these pawns are controlling these squares. So the knights can't attack the queen. The queen defends this square, so you can bring a knight out without it being harassed by this pawn coming forward. It's a funny way to play. And let's see, you can bring the bishop out here to hit the knight. And we'll start with this one. Nice developing move. And he defended there. He still can't push. I need to develop my bishop. Sometimes the idea is to bring the bishop out and then it gets kicked and then bring it back. It's not a threat against here, but maybe it's a kind of threat over here. But mainly I just wanted to be able to get castled here. I guess if I had my knight out already, then putting the bishop here would be a threat on the knight. Yeah, he defended. Pretty logical. Let's get castled. Okay, so he's got a fianchetto set up. If I bring my knight out now, say knight to c6, you know, he can move this knight with an attack on my queen, and then I take it, and then he takes my bishop. But if I had a knight here, then it would be defending the bishop. So we couldn't do that. So knight here, knight takes, queen takes, then he doesn't have that discovered attack with the, or the move of the, yeah, so I think I can bring out the knight. And, oh yeah, the queen's defense of that knight is interrupted by the bishop, so he has to respond to this move. In some way. Goes there. So maybe he's thinking of pushing the f-pawn. Well, I could put my knight here, kind of walking into his idea, but after he pushes a pawn, I could give a check. And then I could move my knight. And maybe I'm immediately threatening to just move my knight here and take off that take off that bishop. I should probably try to get my light squared bishop developed too. Speaking of pieces. Not quite sure how to develop it. So if I go here, it opens up. Oh, he does that. That's interesting. So I have to defend here, I think. I can defend with the bishop or the pawn. I like with the bishop better. Anyway, when I move this pawn, I have to be careful about this diagonal. So if he can get in these moves with tempo, like here, kicking my knight, and then here, be a double attack on my pieces and the rook in the corner. So maybe I should move my rook here first before pushing the b pawn, and then move my bishop here. In this particular situation, knight here is an idea too, hitting this pawn and defending my bishop. Yeah, because he's got queen and bishop hitting my bishop, so I have to be careful he doesn't win that piece. But yeah, this is kind of a pin on this knight. If I could just move it anywhere, he can take the bishop. So, but I can move it here. Yeah, I think I need to unpin right away. And this is a good way to do it because it hits the queen. Good time to do it. So he doesn't have time to play a fork like that. You know what, though? He could exchange and then push, forking my pieces, which means I have to take back here with the queen. Queen and the knight keep this defended. Well, if he takes, could I take his queen? Then he takes my queen. Now he gets two pieces. He gets the bishop and the queen, and I just get the queen. So if he takes, I think I have to take back with the queen. And he can't push right away, of course, but he takes. If I took with the knight, then he could push. So he takes, I take with the queen. His queen is still hanging. The queen could move away. There's no time to push this pawn, or the queen could trade. Yeah, I think actually, if we back up for a second. So if he took here, and I took with the queen, and he just kept trading, queen takes, knight takes, then he's got this push. Yeah. So this was bad from the start. Yeah, let's go. Fortunately, he didn't do that. So let's take here. Let's check that out after the game. Now I can hit this pawn, I suppose. Yeah, let's move my rook off that diagonal. The knight can take here if he pushes his pawn at the moment, as long as it doesn't happen with tempo against some other piece, like the rook in the corner. There, he finally did it. So back to knight here. He doesn't have a dark squared bishop now to give me a hard time. Yeah, he could pile up with his rook here. It's pretty well defended. You could put the queen here. Oh, he brought the other rook out. Yeah, now I'm wondering, should I just push this pawn forward? That's one thing his knights do. Yeah, I didn't recognize this before, but his knights are concentrated on this square. So when I push the pawn forward, pawn takes, knight takes, knight takes, pawn takes, bishop takes. I just lose a pawn there. Yeah, okay, let's develop my bishop. He can't take this pawn. The worst he can do is put the queen here, which would be annoying for sure. But if I get my bishop here and I push the pawn here and make this knight move, then maybe I could get in this move. Oh, I could put a rook behind it too. Bishop here, rook here. Push the pawn, something like that. I could give up a pawn here if it pulls this knight away. Ah, so he attacks my knight. Yeah, I didn't really have any good squares to move it back to. And I wanted to move with tempo so I can develop my bishop. There we go. Yeah, it looks like he was getting a little concerned about this knight when he took back with the rook. On the other hand, he didn't do anything about this pawn, which is going to be loose after a bunch of exchanges on this square. So, right, if I play d5 now and he takes, I take with the knight, he takes with the knight, I take with the bishop, takes with the bishop, I take with the pawn. Yeah, so I need another rook here. Ah, so he just goes there. So what is this? If I put the knight here, he will take it. Take with the pawn, bishop takes, bishop takes. Yeah, maybe I'll end up losing a pawn. I mean, I can grab this pawn after the knight moves. But I'm going to have some loose pawns here too. This one and this one will both be loose, so I'll be probably down a pawn. We'll start with the pawn takes. Queen is also looking at this pawn, but it's defended. Something I could attack. Let's see, he might just defend this pawn and then grab this pawn. That would put an end to my plans. Yes, indeed, indeed. Okay, I can counterattack this pawn, though. There we go, just clearing out a little space so I can defend this pawn from behind. think he might still end up a pawn ahead at the end of all these exchanges. He's been playing a very, very cautious game here. And I haven't found any dramatic breakthroughs. But he missed that chance to fork my two knights. Well, it just takes that pawn. Anyway, this is good because now I can okay, let's be a little cautious here. Depends on how he takes. Well, if he takes with the queen, I guess I'll keep trading, and then we're about even. Yeah, weird. I mean, it did threaten mate, so it was pretty clear I had to answer to that. So he could play C4, I suppose. But yeah, once I've defended there, you can't really do that. On the other hand, yeah, now this again stops me from pushing my pawn. That's a pretty clever move. Pretty clever move. Okay, what should I do? Guess I should bring my king out. Yeah, he went there. Yeah, I don't think I have much I can do about that. That is, he just takes that pawn. Well, let's go ahead and do this. At least my king is out. It's always useful in an endgame to have your king out. And when he takes my bishop, then I'll be hitting this pawn. But yes, he does end up a couple pawns up. Sad to say. Yeah, so I series of rough games with the rapid time control continues. I'm going to go ahead and take this. This is probably a winning king and pawn endgame for white, but well, let's let him prove that he can win it. He should take my rook and then just push this pawn. Yeah, maybe leaving it back like that was good too. But in any case, I just have to get my king over by the pawns. Interesting. So if I just lock this up, and he tries to come around with this king, he'll go here and then here. So I go here, he goes here. I go here, he goes there. I take, he takes. I think I'm in a bad spot. So we will take, but probably also loses. He could just take with the king, huh? Oh, but that actually is not so clear, is it? If he takes with the king, I'll put my king here. So he takes with the pawn. And my king maybe gets here just in time to defend. So yeah, he blew a winning position. So now if his king ever moves, the only squares it can go to, don't defend this pawn. Yeah, so just take the opposition, and this is suddenly a win for black. Well, you got to know how to play those endgames. I think this was already lost when he put his king here, because even if he'd moved this pawn one step forward, I would move my pawn one step forward. Yeah, there's not much he can do now. Okay, here, let's look at a few things on the analysis board. So this was all okay, I thought, through the beginning. Maybe not best, but you know. It was a little difficult starting here. Maybe that's already a mistake. Is this already lost? No, this is playable. Okay. Then what did I do? I went there. And he didn't take. So I was expecting him to take. I can take back with the knight. And then when he pushes this pawn, what do I do? Ah, that's the way to play it. So I'm still okay there. But that's a bit tricky. So what does the computer recommend? The computer recommends retreating the bishop. Very counterintuitive move. You retreat the bishop. So probably that putting the bishop there in the first place was a bad idea. Yeah. So it would have been better to push this pawn, or just retreat the bishop directly and then be prepared to push the pawn to block that. Because putting the bishop here was a bit awkward. This was the game. He went here, and oops, let's get back to that position. Yeah, so here I moved my knight, and he should have taken. And just the thing I was saying was this. So I thought, well, I put my rook here, he's going to fork them. I didn't see that I could come back and counter fork his queen and pawn and get out of it that way. But So I thought I would have to take with the queen, and now he's winning. See that +7? So that's what he should have tried anyway, because I might not have found the best move. And even with the best move, I'm in a little bit of trouble. So what's the best move again? Best move is he takes, I take, and then, yeah, +1 for white. He doesn't push the pawn, but moves the queen, and he's +1. Okay, so, yeah, but my mistake was moving the bishop there. I should have put the pawn there instead, which I thought about. Okay, but let's go back to the game. So it went like this, and I'm doing okay through here, and then this position seemed a bit awkward. E5. I should play E5. Yeah, a lot of times E5 is the answer. Looks a little counterintuitive, but it blocks this pawn. Yeah, I still was trying to get in D5, and maybe I just tried too hard to get that. So yeah, he's just a couple pawns up here, and he stays a couple pawns up all the way through. Now he played that part really well through that middle there, and now he's just winning, and he's still winning, although it decreased a little bit. And even here, this is winning, right? And this is just a winning endgame, like I said. He's should use this pawn as a decoy and step up with his king and take my pawns. What did he do? He stepped up with his king. So it seemed like this part was right. Yeah, he should be winning from here. Even though the pawns are even, his king is in the good position. So he just has to, you know, come in here and take these pawns while I'm bringing my king over. But instead he pushed his pawn. Well, still winning. Okay, and then that move. Okay, look at, we go from +57 to 0. So the move he had to play here was pushing this pawn forward. Instead he pushed that one. But if we back up to this one, yeah, the thing to do is to activate your king. That's the real thing to do in this situation. These pawns, I mean, these pawns are in a nice row here, defending each other. My king would have to travel all the way over to here. Well, let's do it this way. All the way over to here to take that pawn. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves to take a pawn, and then 5 moves, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can basically gobble up all my pawns and start pushing this one. So this is just a win for white. And then he played here, and it's a draw. And then still a draw. Actually, there was it went back and forth there. It went from a win to a draw, and then my move wasn't the best. What was my move? Oh, I should have gone this way to keep the draw. Anyway, I go for the pawns. And so he still has another chance to win with f6, but he plays the other pawn, and now it's a draw again. And stays a draw. And now this is good for me. So he had to take with the king. The problem with taking with the king is I'm going to go here, and you know, whenever he takes this pawn, I'll take this one, and I'm in a good spot to stop this one. Even if he plays this pawn forward, I can just take it. So this is a draw, and then this pawn, this is actually a win for black. That final mistake. And it's a very subtle kind of position. This is called the trebuchet. It's like a mutually assured destruction. One side or the other is going to lose the race and get forced away from these pawns that are butting heads against each other. So he should just give up at this point, but he kept fighting, and it's just that there was nothing he could do, because I have the opposition in a way. I can, you know, he can go here, I can go here, he can go here, I can go here. But in any case, I can create a Zugzwang here, where he forces him away. Now, if his pawn were here, or if I were forced to move instead, then there's no place that I can move to that defends my pawn. So that's what I meant by it's mutual assured destruction. So it's all about who is forced to move. And since I was since in this case he's forced to move, then I win this. Okay, I thought that was pretty interesting. See you next time. Bye.